You are now watching Between Villains.
What's going on, villains? Welcome back to Between Villains Live. Show's Flea, back with some more video game content for y'all. Before we get into all that, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you turn on post notifications on and everything like that. We appreciate it. It helps us out directly. Let's get into today's content. So, recently, I've been thinking to myself, the last 10 years of video games have been great, but I haven't really made a top 10 list. So that's essentially what we're here to do today. Talk about my top 10 games of the last 10 years. These are not my favorite games of all time. That's for a different video. And these are not the greatest games of all time. That's also a different video. These games are strictly my favorite games of the last 10 years. Games that I really had fun with, games that stood out to me, games that I made core memories with, and trust me, Elden Ring is definitely on the list. Let's get into it. Alright, villains. So coming in at number 10 on my list is Nier Automata. So this gem was made by Platinum Games. It's a really great game. Came out February 23rd, 2017. It's kind of like an action adventure slash role-playing game. And it also has some cool shoot 'em up levels. So if you're a fan of those games, there's something here for you. But I think what I love most about Nier Automata is the actual world that you're placed in. It's like this dystopian version of Earth, and just fucking ill to see how the robots and the humans kind of coincide with each other, and everything that's going on there is pretty dope. I don't want to get into spoiler territory because the story is awesome. You have to play the game about 2 to 3 times in order to get the true ending, but it's a great story nonetheless, and it's definitely one of the games over the last 10 years that stood out to me the most. I think the combat is just next level. Platinum Games really knocked it out the park with this one. They somehow managed to blend the shoot 'em up elements into the actual core gameplay of this game, and I think that was just kind of mind-blowing in itself. So yeah, Nier Automata, easily one of my favorite games of the last 10 years. No brainer for number 10 on this list. And let's move on to the next one.
To me! Now! Than usual.
Boom. Yes, sir. Number 9 on my list is Control. Y'all knew it, man. So Control was made by Remedy, the same people that made Max Payne back in the day, Alan Wake and shit like that. Great fucking games, right? But Control was like next level, bro. If you told me that in 2019 Remedy would be dropping a 3D Metroidvania game full on with superhero powers and crazy ass abilities, I'd tell you that you were a freaking liar. Straight up lying. There's no way. But it actually happened. This game was dope. One of the best games that I played in the last 10 years. One of my favorite. The Metroidvania elements are crazy, man. Like, you're in this big ass asylum, unlocking different rooms, different levels of the asylum, and all with it new powers. So I think that the way that this game blends those powers with shooting, this beautiful game, and I think that the story connecting to Alan Wake, being in that wider universe, is just a real good one. You have to play it. I think it was on Game Pass at one point, so if you need any more incentive, you can play it for free right now on Xbox. And the game does not disappoint. If you like story, you like gameplay, you like combat, this is the game for you guys. Alright, villains. So coming in at number 8 on my very biased list is Xenoblade Chronicles Part 2. Now, the game was developed by Monolith Soft and published by Nintendo. Came out December 1st, 2017, and it's actually my favorite JRPG of all time. Now, I know this is a very niche game, but I just feel like Xenoblade Chronicles does it for me on all levels. Like, the combat is insane. It's out of this world. If you've ever played a JRPG, you know, those games are usually relegated to like turn-based combat where you go back and forth with the computer. But in Xenoblade, it's a little bit more complicated than that. This game is a lot more hands-on. You actually have to control your characters on the battlefield. Different positions on the battlefield give you different advantages, and you have these lists of inputs that you have to activate at certain times. So when you're advanced enough, the game basically becomes this rhythm game mixed in with a JRPG, and I think this game is just one of the greatest JRPGs ever made. The story is a little bit much for some people. It's a very lengthy story. I spent over 100 hours to complete this game, but if you can get through all the nonsense and JRPG tropes, I think this game is just fucking awesome. And the fact that it's on the Switch and the fact that you're able to take it with you, it's portable. I think this game is awesome, guys. I think this is the one to go with, especially if you enjoy a traditional JRPG story but want some new gameplay elements. It's right here, y'all. It's right here. It's been here for a while now. Tune in.
How would you protect yourself and the ones you love when the protectors can't even save themselves?
Yeah, we listen and we don't judge, guys. Coming in next on my list is State of Decay 2. Now, I know it's popular to hit on Xbox games, but let me tell you something, y'all. If y'all want the definitive zombie experience, like if you're into that type of stuff, this is the game you need to be playing. It's currently on Xbox Game Pass, launched on their day one, courtesy of Xbox. Xbox cut the check. But this game is the definitive experience, y'all. If you watch Walking Dead and you want to live in that universe, you want to feel what it's like to deal with people dying, permadeath, different gameplay elements like hunger, sickness, and shit like that, this is what you should be playing, guys. 10 out of 10 experience, especially when you have a full squad of friends with you trying to stop hordes of the undead. Some crazy ass zombies in this game too. There's some zombies that could just pick you up, rip you in half, and then that character is essentially dead for the rest of the playthrough. And maybe that character was a doctor that you needed, that was the only person at your base that knew how to cure the zombie infection. So now essentially you're left without a doctor. Your community is probably in shambles. People probably want to leave. There's a lot of different elements here, y'all. I'm telling you, if you haven't played State of Decay 2, check it out. One of my favorite zombie games of all time. Alright, villain. So next on my list is none other than Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I think is one of the greatest games of all time. Just simply put, like, the game has just about every video game character you could have. So if you're a fan of video games, I feel like this game has to be on your radar at some point. Other than that, man, one of the greatest fighting games ever. Mario and friends just beating the holy shit out of each other, to be honest. And this game is just polished. It feels like the perfect Smash Bros. Game. There's so much content in here. What's kind of lacking as far as like the story goes, but as far as everything else, and then the DLC, the one coming out, this game went absolutely crazy. The game dropped on Nintendo Switch and did crazy numbers, of course, went on to sell billions and billions and gajillions of copies, had an insane presence at the tournament scene for fighting games, and to be honest, man, I think Smash Bros. Peaked with this game. I don't know if we'll ever get a Smash Bros. Game as good as this one, or with as many characters as this one, so definitely something to appreciate. The reason I really love this game, to be honest, it made me feel like a kid again. This is like the first time as an adult that I truly experienced nostalgia on that level, and it's me and my friends linking up, everybody fighting, trying to get good at the game again. It was just like this big renaissance for Nintendo and for all the 90s kids out there. I think this was like a love letter to us. Shout out to Nintendo and Masahiro Sakurai for delivering one of the greatest fighting games ever, and I will die on that hill. Yeah, that's right, man. We kicking top 5 off for the banger. One of the greatest games ever. And I know I'm saying that about this list, but like I said in the beginning of the video, the last 10 years have been great. And this game is no exception to that. This is one of the greatest Metroidvania games of all time. In my opinion, it comes up second to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, just because of what Symphony did for the genre and shit. But Hollow Knight, oh man, it's an indie game, indie darling, sold a lot of copies, and the reason it sold copies was because of the game being good. Like, word of mouth got around, everybody wanted to find out about Hollow Knight, and it had this crazy ass run on all platforms. I wound up buying this game about 3 different times, so that just tells you how good the game is. And from start to finish, the music, the combat, the exploration, the story itself is just so immersive, and like, there's just something to be said. The team at Team Cherry went crazy with this one. Hats off to them. One of the best experiences I've had on a video game ever, and absolutely one of the best games of the last 10 years. Shout out to Hollow Knight, man. Resident Evil 7. Now, we could talk about a lot of different things when it comes to Resident Evil, but I think the most important thing that Resident Evil 7 did was reinvigorate the Resident Evil franchise. If you guys don't know, Resident Evil was in a pretty bad place before this game came out. The franchise dramatically needed something new, something fresh, and that's essentially what this game provided to us. This game single-handedly saved the Resident Evil franchise while at the same time doing something completely different. Now, me personally, I think this is one of the better Resident Evil games that ever came out. I'm a really big Resident Evil Remake fan. For those that don't know me, Resident Evil Remake on the original GameCube is one of my favorite video games ever. That game is actually on my Mount Rushmore of video games. And Resident Evil 7, man, while it's not as good as the original remake, I believe, 7 is so good in other ways. Like, I could actually go out on a limb, since I've been in almost every Resident Evil game, and say that this is one of the most scariest Resident Evil games to date, if not the absolute scariest. If I had to single out just one thing, I think what I appreciate most from this game is that it brought back one of my favorite video game franchises of all time and set it on this new trajectory of survival horror gaming. So I'm really excited for the future of Resident Evil. Of course, since then we've gotten Resident Evil Village, which is essentially the 8th game, and that kind of built on this story. So just seeing the impact that Resident Evil 7 had on the franchise, it's a beautiful thing to see, and I'm excited for more Resident Evil first-person games.
The new world.
Amazing, ain't it?
Yeah, man, we're getting into the nitty-gritty right now. So coming in at number 3 on my top 10 game list of the last 10 years is none other than Capcom's Monster Hunter World. That's right, Capcom went back-to-back on the list. Resident Evil 7 was a banger. Monster Hunter World was also a banger. It went crazy, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Capcom kind of just started recooking all of their old franchises, reinvented everything, and had this renaissance, man. Same thing happened with Devil May Cry 5 as well. So it was really cool to see Capcom's franchises come back to where they needed to be. And what this game did for the Monster Hunter franchise was bring it to a more general audience. People like me that never really played Monster Hunter before finally got a chance to get in on the franchise. It was kind of stuck to portable handheld devices before this, but now that it was on a home device, home console, we were able to play together. And I think my favorite part of this game is just the co-op functionality with your friends. I think this is one of the best co-op gaming experiences, along with State of Decay 2, that you could have played in the last 10 years. And this just opened us up to a whole different world of gaming. It was actually the first game that we streamed on the channel, so of course this had to make the list. Gameplay wise, this shit is just fucking next level, out of this world shit. It's nothing quite like it. The gameplay loop is basically meet up with friends, hit the pub, get some food together, set out on a quest, hunt giant kaiju, skin giant kaiju for material, rinse and repeat. Now, as far as cinematics go, the RE engine definitely shines bright in this game. Definitely feels like Capcom took their time, ensuring that this game was going to be as pretty as possible, as fun as possible, and I think that shows in the final product and sales numbers. World went on to become one of Capcom's highest and fastest selling games of all time, and to be honest, it deserved every copy sold.
Dragons must migrate to the New World for some reason.
You think it's from Zora Magdaros? The rune of death bestowed. And the demigods began to fall.
Oof, we at number 2, y'all. Now, I'm not gonna hold you, man. This was probably the hardest decision on the list. This game could easily be the greatest game of all time. Like I said earlier in the video, Elden Ring would be on the list, man. Elden Ring, man. Well, I don't even know where to fucking start with Elden Ring, but all I can tell you is that Miyazaki is an artist. He dropped Demon Souls, transformed it into Dark Souls, went on to make Sekiro. Now we're here at Elden Ring, man. Elden Ring broke the internet, like completely broke the internet. Everybody was playing the same exact game at the same exact time, dealing with the same exact stuff, and this game just took video gaming to like a new height. I'm not sure if From Software will ever make a game as great as this, but Elden Ring, an expansive open world with the same Dark Souls formula that we've come to love from the franchise. You mix that in with some beefy boss battles, juicy new cinematics, and what we have on our hand it's one of the greatest games of all time. Now I know some people will be like, what game is better than Elden Ring? But we're gonna get to that in a few. But what Elden Ring did for the Souls franchise is kind of what Monster Hunter World did for the Monster Hunter franchise. Elden Ring brought Souls-like games to the forefront of gaming. It actually became its own genre. Went on to spawn a lot of different clones and shit like that. So Elden Ring is probably the pinnacle of Souls gaming, from exploration to the open world, to the dungeons, to the combat, to the different builds you can do, to the online multiplayer section of it. Just so much stuff going on in Elden Ring, and I feel like Elden Ring is one of those games where if you wanted to show somebody what a video game could be, or the capabilities of gaming, anything like that, I think you show them Elden Ring.
And the blade of Mika and Melania the Seventh. These two were the mightiest to remain, and locked horns in combat.
Okay. I'll always be with you.
Oof, man. So this is a conclusion. This is number one on my list. This is the big reveal. Everybody wants to know why Elden Ring isn't number one on my list. It's because of a game called Stranding. Now, just for lore reasons, I feel like I have to come out and tell people that Hideo Kojima is my favorite video game director of all time. He directed one of my favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and went on to become a legendary video game icon. And Death Stranding, in my opinion, is his best game yet. Now, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. That might be my most controversial video game take of all time, but I personally don't care. I've never been somebody to be easily swayed by others' opinions. I usually have to check something out on my own before I can make a final verdict, final opinion on something. And I'm so glad that I'm like that, because Death Stranding is a fucking movie. This game, if you want to talk about cinematics, let's just start there. This game is probably the most gorgeous looking game of all time. Now, I know the term of all time gets thrown around very loosely nowadays, but I'm so serious, guys. I think the character models, the environment, the water in the game, just everything looks beautiful. This might be the prettiest game of all time. Another one of my favorite things when it comes to Death Stranding is the world that the game drops you into. Now, that is a common theme amongst all these games on the list. If you go back and watch this video again, you'll notice that each game has an immersive world where you can get lost in for hours and have a bunch of fun, and that's really what I look for in video games. So Death Stranding did a really good job of that. I was able to get lost in this universe. I think it's a very unique setup. The post-apocalyptic / dystopian setting, and the rules of the universe, if you may, the way that the Stranding kind of affects humans, and the relationship with like the chiral activity and things like that. It's just a bunch of stuff that's going on that mirrors our actual life, and I think that Kojima's vision is just very different. The fact that this game came out a year before COVID happened, and it was really about you delivering packages as like this fucking Amazon guy, it's something in itself. Like, he kind of told the future, and the Amazon workers basically became essential during COVID. Yeah, man, Death Stranding is an awesome game. My favorite game of the last 10 years. Norman Reedus does an exceptional job here in the acting department. Supporting actors are crazy too. They got Guillermo del Toro, Conan O'Brien, a bunch of weird random people in this game. Guys, if you haven't played this game, it's out now on Xbox, PlayStation, of course, PC. The director's cut is out. Do yourself a favor, ignore the reviews, just play the game, approach it with an open mind, and I promise you, you will love this game, bro. And that brings us to the end of our list. Let me know what you guys think of my 10 favorite games of the last 10 years down below in the comment section. Pretty sure most of you guys will disagree with me, but if you do disagree, leave your list down below in the comment section. Stay tuned to Between Villains. We'll catch you guys on the next video.